fantastic group of wonderful folks. All of whom are too busy to join us today. So
That's
that's pretty
good.
cool. Yeah, I like that. All right, still says that it's setting it up on YouTube. So we're waiting. There we go. I think we're live. All right. Welcome. Hello, everyone, to another busy webinar. This is the X and Ask the Expert event today on selling and lead generation. We have my friend and yours, Trygve Olsen, who is the leader of many sales boot camps and trainings across the HubSpot universe and known far and wide as that guy with the wonderful name that has all of the great stories about how to connect and get through to people. So Trygve, welcome
Thank you,
and
Dave.
hello.
Pleasure to be here. I like to think of it like the old line from the 80s movie, the Three Amigos, that I'm so famous, I'm infamous.
There you go. I like that. I
Thank you.
like, and you might be wondering who we are and what we do. Well, BizzyWeb is a sales enablement company. So everything that we do is designed around getting new leads and deals for our clients in B2B services and manufacturing. And if you've heard of inbound marketing and all of the things that go into that, we are Platinum HubSpot partners, Google partners, and just nice people to hang out with. We're based in Minneapolis and would love to chat with you if we've never talked before. Although something tells me that we have talked quite a bit with the people that are attending today. If you're watching this live from YouTube, we would love to get your feedback as well. You can send us questions at Dave or Trygve at BizzyWeb.com, and we will do our best to connect with you. For the folks that are in today's Ask the Expert event, this is an Ask the Expert, so you're going to get a chance to ask. Please use the Q&A tool if you have any questions for Trygve or myself today. Anything you want to add, Trig?
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna present for a little while, and then we're gonna do some interactive talking. I think a lot of time people had a lot of questions that were really on sort of the first part of the sales process. So we're gonna focus primarily on how do you get over that hump of I don't like sales, I don't want to be that guy, and how do I actually use that thing that I don't want to do to make some money? And
Right.
then we've got I think the lion's share of the questions that people asked, all really good questions. We're going to try and answer all of them.
Great. Well, thank you. And for folks that are, one of the big questions that always comes up is, are you recording this? Yes, this talk and topic will be available at youtube.com/BizzyWeb. All right. So, Trig, here's what we're talking about today. You ready?
Yep, I'm ready. So we're gonna talk about really how do we start and that involves before you actually pick up the phone, before you come up with a clever thing to say, what do you got to do? And you got to put in the miles, put in the work. We're going to talk about different communication strategies and styles and how to lead with help. And then we'll talk a little bit about and kind of unpack our model, at least on the start of the process of consultative selling. But I wanted to start, Dave, with an easy and simple question that's often hard to ask, which answer. And I'd love to hear what people put in the chat pane is. And you can forward the slide. Can you sell anything to anyone? Or a better question to ask is, can you sell to anyone you ever call? And I'd love to get some feedback on what the answers are, because this is often a controversial question. Because the idea is that sales and machismo go together, and you if you're just the good enough and you're just clever enough, then you can do all of these things. And so a lot of times people say, well, yeah, I can definitely sell to everybody. And that's by and large true. I'm a pretty clever guy. I'm a pretty smart guy. I can probably convince anybody to do a lot of things, but that's not really what you do in business, because getting the yes is one thing, but that doesn't create a good long relationship. You've got to keep in mind the people behind you. You've got to service it. You got to make sure that the solution is actually going to do what you want it to do, because it's not just getting some money and leaving. So a better question to ask, I think, is, instead of can you sell anything to anybody, is should you sell anything to anybody? And my answer to that, which I think is controversial, especially since I'm the head of sales of a very large organization, is no, you shouldn't sell everything to everybody. because you can't, the only way that you can really help people is if they really truly want to be helped. So there's two things that go into that. Number one is, do you have a solution that can solve the problem? Number two is, do they want you to be the solution to the problem? And number three is, are they ready to have their problem solved? And so one of those things you can control, the other you can sort of control, and the other you just simply can't. So one of the things we promise you is, how do you actually start by figuring that out, figuring out who to sell to? And one of the things that we use is a tool that you get from HubSpot, which is called the Prospect Fit Matrix, where you can really sit down and say, okay, of the people that we really want to work with, who do we sell to? Why do we want to work with them? What are the characteristics that make up an organization like that? And how can we best help them? And is there a really good fit? Okay, cool. Is there a really not maybe kind of sort of a good fit?
Mhm.
And then is there somebody who's just simply not a good fit? You really shouldn't work with them. And oftentimes, when you're in sales, you don't necessarily know that just based on people's attitude, because people are going to come to you not in a confrontational way. They're going to come to you not wanting to deal with you. They're going to come with you not wanting to not wanting to buy from you, because they're skeptical, because you're trying to sell them something. So they think that that thing I said earlier, Dave, about machismo and sales go together, that they're
Mhm.
going to try and that somehow they're going to get taken. And so they're going to protect themselves from being taken. You just got to roll with that and realize that, hey, your goal isn't to try and fleece them. Your goal is to actually genuinely help them.
Right.
So one of the things that we talk about all the time, which is kind of controversial in and of itself, is what are you looking for help with? And oftentimes the things that we sell here aren't the things that people necessarily think that they need help with, but throughout the sales process, we can actually help get them there. But some rules of thumb as you're looking at your best fit client is, I think, things like, who do you really want to work with? Who are the people that you work with that you actually genuinely like talking to? And the things that your customers and your people really enjoy working with. One of the things that we see all the time is, when we get a high level of professionalism and respect from our client base, which is by and large true, our people are a lot more engaged. So what really is the characteristics that make up a really good fit client for them? And, in our case, what we're looking for is people who want to be partners. And you can forward the slide, Dave, because we're not just doing the one thing. We want people that we can earn and continue to keep their trust in. And that defines a longer term relationship, and that they actually need some help.
Mhm.
Oftentimes what we see is, and we're okay with this, and it's baked into our business model, is that there are some people that we are going to work with for a finite amount of time. And we're open about that and let them end, because if we do our job and help them grow successfully, they're going to want to hire somebody. They're going to want to take things internally, and we're okay with that. And that means we're going to shake hands and part as friends. But I think the other thing to keep in mind is, well, when you talk about transactional selling, there's a couple of different concepts with that. If I always think of the Han Solo ice cube tray that I bought once, that I didn't want my wife to figure out, so I bought it quickly. So that's a transaction. But on the other hand, if you're talking about selling, really, you want to think of, what are other things that you can do together if you get your foot in the door? What are some other ways that you can help in need once you prove the trust and you've developed a partnership? So that all goes into defining really what's a good fit client. And that once you create that list of characteristics, then you can turn around and start targeting people and places to call. That being said, though, everybody still has that feeling. Oh my God, I don't want to be that dirty, skeezy sales guy with the open collar and who's saying, hey, what do I need to do to get you into this website today? And hopefully I've never done that. And if I did, please don't put it in the chat pane that I've done. But you don't have to be that. And I think the one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older, Dave, is the movies have it wrong. Sales isn't about being clever, it's about being kind, and it's about being empathetic and providing the right solution at the right time. So, in order to do that, what I ask my students to do is think about what are the ways in which, if you're going to pick up the phone and call somebody, why would you want to do that? Well, you want to do better for your family, so put that in your heart. But helping new clients and building things for the positive, those are all things that can kind of get into your motivation of how you do. And one of the questions that we had is, I've been doing this for a long time. How do I continue to motivate myself? This is how you motivate yourself. I want to grow my business. I want to grow my team. I want to push through fear. I want to learn a new skill. I want to be creative and as part of your job, because being creative is not always just doing creative work. It's presenting and doing things in an interesting and different kind of way, and really pushing yourself to do something new is always a challenge that I think a lot of people get into. So, Dave, what are some of the what reasons that you want to pick up the phone?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is identifying, of course, knowing who we serve and what we can do for them is what charges me up, because what I go through is I find lists or connections or get referrals of people that we can really help. And then my conversation is about asking the right questions and then helping them identify how they're going to solve the problem that we're talking about in the first place. So
Yeah,
for me, it's all about it's exactly like if a friend from, a long time ago comes up to me and is asking for relationship advice. I'm not going to try to sell them into their next wife. I'm going to try and connect with them and say, okay, well, what's going on? How's it working for you? And is that what you need? And are you getting the right things? So I'm asking the questions that lead to the ability for me to find a fit. And I think it's as important as any other sales conversation to realize that you can't help everyone. And it's a service to you and your audience, or to the person that you're talking to, if you identify that as quickly as possible if it's not a fit. Right. So, my sales conversations, if it's clear that they don't need us, is like, well, let me find you somebody that can help you. And that's way better and feels better for everybody around the table.
yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of different, whatever your own personal answer is, that's your own personal answer. And thank you for sharing. For me, I love a good puzzle and I love building things. And those two things together can help me, work with somebody to sort through the problem that they're facing and how to make it better. I had a conversation with somebody about a month ago. He said, "You know what the problem with you, Trygve, is?" And I said, "I don't know what." He said, "My selling skill is I'm going to tell somebody, if you don't do this, it's going to be a disaster, so you should do it. You tell people this is going to make your life so much better if you do this." So, and I'm kind of okay with that, because I don't like pushing fear. It's not who I am as a person. So all that being said, with all the technology out there, and everybody gets that email 3 times a week saying, if you just we have this great new game-changing AI technology that if you just sign here and give me a whole pile of money, then automatically you're going to be able to I'm going to give you leads and leads and stacks of leads. And that's not really true. And trust me, because I've looked at most of them in hopes that it would be right. And take it from a seasoned pro, there's no substitute for actually putting in the work of developing the relationships, because people are going to buy from you before they're going to buy from anybody else. And that's one of the first things that you have to do to sell. In order to do that, you have to develop a certain level of trust. Marketing, on the other hand, is not a substitute for that. It helps amplify your voice and what your offering is. But the voice, when eventually they're going to have to talk to a real person, and that voice is going to have to be yours. So
For sure.
when you're talking about prospecting in 2024, there is a million and 12 different ways that you can communicate with somebody, and all of them are relevant. And that's one of the questions we get at BizzyWeb all the time is, should I have an X channel? Should I have an Instagram channel? And the answer is maybe, because really it sort of gets down to the four basics of picking up the phone, sometimes emailing, sometimes texting people, or maybe connecting with them on social. But at the end of the day, when you're prospecting, you have to realize the one fundamental important thing is there is a cacophony of noise surrounding people at all times. And everybody gets 100 emails a day. Everybody gets 24 phone calls a day. How can you be different? And how can you show that you're different? Well, one of the easiest ways to do that is not make it about you, not make it about what you have to offer, listening to the person you're talking to, and actually try and be a little different. Sometimes you can do it with comedy, not a lot, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to get noticed at this point in the process in a way that is open and professional.
Isn't calling dead though, Trygve?
Boy, I hear that a lot. And that's calling is certainly harder through the pandemic because nobody's in the office anymore, or they're in a hybrid scenario. But at the end of the day, as people are getting less connected because they're working from home or they're not seeing many people, they are craving connection, and they want to stay together and they want to be there. But the problem is, David, is if you're using other forms of communication, things like email, things like texts, those are great to a point, but you're pushing one specific message, which is usually about you, what you can do, what you can offer, what you can do to help, but in a really sort of broad way.
Right.
So by picking up the phone and trying to elicit and start a conversation, notice I said start a conversation, not push a script. There's a number of really great advantages. So first of all, you get them talking. You can listen and you can find out some of the challenges they're facing. You can find out what other suppliers they're using, what they think of them. You can find out what they think of you. You can find out really just about anything you can, as you can get somebody talking. So, and the information you gather really helps you understand your market, which then turns around and helps your marketing as well, because you're adapting to your product, your prospects' needs. And also helps you get a handle on the competition. And most importantly, I think companies are using inaccurate data, and a big lead list generators. They're using inaccurate data to compile those lists.
Right.
So, and the salespeople aren't trained well enough to get past gatekeepers, or they given a script that makes them sound
Mhm.
clever and cheeky and sound like a robot, and nobody wants to talk to them. So there's no excuse for doing that. You shouldn't be cold calling. You should be warm calling. You should be calling only the people that you really actually genuinely want to talk to. You do that by prospecting, finding out a little bit more about them, looking at LinkedIn, finding out who they do, who you know in common, who they've worked with before, so you can actually connect on a personal level. And that's not, a lot of times people say, "Ooh, that's stalking." And it's not really stalking. It's just making use of the available amount of information that somebody puts into the world. Also, one of the things that I really like is using automated tools. Like HubSpot has a chat GPT integration, which is really fantastic, where you can do quick research on a company. It'll tell you, who the employees are. It'll tell you how many people they are, what industries they're in, tell you their tech stack, what technology they're using. It's fantastic. So at the end of the day, you can use other tools, Dave, but LinkedIn, email, those are connection tools. They're not prospecting.
Right.
Your best opportunity to make a relationship is to actually pick up the phone.
Right on.
So in order to do that, what I say is sort of my sales mantra every day is I want to help somebody. If I'm having a bad day, if I don't get a deal, I do I double down? Do I psych myself up? Do I watch, YouTube clips of Glengarry Glen Ross? The answer is no. I really just say, okay, I'm going to clear the decks, and I'm going to say, okay, the next 5 calls, 10 calls I'm going to make, I'm just going to try and help somebody, and actually try and help in a way that's meaningful to them. And so I'm resetting back into All I want to do is make a connection. All I want to do is learn about somebody. All I want to do is see where it hurts for them and what I can do for them. And this is controversial in and of itself because a lot of times somebody that you and I both know says you should never lead with help because that nobody wants help.
Right.
Nobody wants to admit that they want help. But yet at the
Right.
end of the day, I think everybody really kind of needs help in one way or the other, whether or not they're able to admit it. So starting and oftentimes they're not necessarily the decision maker, but that's okay. It means that you're working the process. So what I would say is starting with help doesn't work unless you validate the problem that they're having. And in order to do that, you need to have a good email, a good website. You need to have some email that's warming it up so they will actually talk to you, and then you can say what's the thing that you're looking for help with. And the benefit of doing this is that you're not pushing your own agenda. You're trying to solve a problem, and everybody wants help solving a problem. And so once you get into that, that's kind of what's known as the connect call, where you're calling somebody and say, hey, I'm ready to help. I wrote out the 9-step process that we follow in order to do that. You'll see that the first 2 have nothing to do with picking up the phone or connect. It's only about making sure that you're talking to the right fit people. Because the other thing to keep in mind, if we go back to the original question of, can we sell to anybody? Sure, but is everybody going to buy from you? No. So let's talk to the people that your time is important. Your time is valuable. Put yourself in a position to be successful. So in any call, we're going to practice this a little today, is the connect call greeting. Hey, it's Trygve from BizzyWeb. And then you pause. You don't say, how are you? Because anytime you say, how are you, somebody's going to say, well, you're bothering me. And they're going to hang up.
Yeah.
And then you use what's a connect call positioning statement. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Talk about some general business, and then if it's a good fit and you as the person who's selling decide that you want to move forward, then you can ask for the next meeting. And then one of the key things there that is really fantastic is sending the recap, because remember, everybody is really noisy still at this point, and everybody's going to forget. So send them an email. Hey, great connecting with you. Here's the 3 things that we talked about. Here's what we're going to do on our next meeting together.
One thing that's pretty fun with technology that's available today, I know that we just started using a tool called Fathom. Plug for it because I think it's awesome and you can get all of this for free. But Fathom.video, you can actually get a recap made out of the AI recording of your call. And
Yes.
it's a one-click thing where it gets it probably 80% right and saves you all of that time to go in and try and restate everything that you talked about in that meeting. So it lets you be more present in the call and it lets you be much faster in doing that recap conversation and sending out the next note.
It's also particularly helpful if you have a long lead cycle and you have to talk to somebody 6, 8, 10 times.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, they say, well, Dave said we could do this. And like, when? Well, okay, well, here's the call transcripts. Dave never said we could do this.
Right. Gotta help.
So this is all done. Everything that we have on screen there, Dave, really should be done in about 15 minutes if you're calling
Yeah.
that quick. And then the next question that people ask is, well, wait a minute. You're talking about good fit leads, not calling everybody, only calling the people that are helpful. How do you identify really good leads? And so my answer to that is that's a much longer discussion that will probably roll out part 2, part 3, part 4, maybe
Yes.
several podcast episodes. But in the short term, I would say that HubSpot Academy, which is a free tool, it's available to anybody, regardless of whether or not you have HubSpot or not, has a great course in how to prospect. And it's about a 40-minute video by a guy named Kyle Jepson, who is really a savant when it comes to prospecting. And Kyle and I have done a lot of things together. He's an amazing guy. I would say here's a great video that you can watch to really help you identify, and Dave put in the chat pane where the on the Zoom how to do that. It's really a fantastic video and it really be helpful. But in the short term, what I generally offer to people is I say, okay, if you need more leads to call, here's how I would develop a list. Number 1 is friends and family. Boom.
Mhm.
Now are you going to sell to mom and dad? No, but you're going to ask them a simple question, which is, who should I really be talking to? And who do you think would be a good fit for me? Oftentimes, if you have a big established business, you can call your current customers and say that same question. So your selling doesn't start yet, but it kind of does, because you're going to say to that customer, Dave, we did that great thing together. I'd love it if you could tell me who else you know and who I should be talking to. Same, the other thing to keep in mind is I talked about the timing a little bit earlier. If you didn't win an opportunity last year, maybe now's the time to call them back up, or somebody who just didn't respond back to you. It just wasn't a priority for them to buy from you then. Okay, that's okay. Then maybe call them back up and talk to them from last year. This is something that we do once a quarter at BizzyWeb, is we shuffle everybody's closed loss and call them back up. But you're not clubbing them over the head. You're saying politely, hey, is this a better time? Did you find a solution? If somebody says, yep, found a solution, we don't need you to call anymore, I say, great, thank you, no problem. I appreciate the time. And we'll take them off the list. Networking events are great. We host something called a Hug, which is a HubSpot user group. It's also a little funny because it's called a Hug. But those are fantastic ways to meet new people. Ask them, hi, who should we be helping with? And then I'm a firm believer in networking because it gets you in the connection of business of connecting other people. Social media prospecting is great too. Sometimes it's as simple as actually posting what you're looking for. Hey, I am looking for 2 new clients who fit this mold. Do you know anybody that I should talk to? There are a lot of great industry forums as well, depending upon where you are and where in the world you are. There's also a great tool called Greg's List, which I think it's Craig's little brother that has just lists of here's everybody in certain fields. But the tool I've been using right now that I really like is ChatSpot. The thing about Greg's List is it's only available for certain people. In certain areas of the country. So I posted one in Phoenix. So there's a lot of different ways. But you notice that here, Dave, as I never said, none of this is buying a list. None of this is a contract aggregator of like, hey, let's plug in this big giant data feed in and just go, and then you're flooded with data. Because the question I ask people when they ask me that is, how many times have you talked to that person who called you out of the blue that you didn't know?
Right.
So if you can make it warmer, then your sales effort's going to be better because you're going to be dealing with things that are more likely to gain some traction.
Right on.
One of the questions that we got was a great fit for kind of this point is, how can I set good meetings and expectations with lead volume and quality? And boy, that's about 9 different questions that's hard to unpack. So lead volume, I would say if you have problems with lead volume, it's a good way to talk and really do some selling with your marketing team and tell them what you need and ask them and give them good feedback to when you get it. One of the most contentious relationships I have with BizzyWeb is once a month I go through the leads with our head of marketing and we go 12 rounds, and it's a lot. But one of the things that I really try and do is, even if a lead didn't close that I got, if it was a good fit lead, it's my responsibility to call it out and say, this was a good fit lead. I want more of these. Because not everybody's going to buy, but if I can get my marketing team to give me more, then my lead volume and quality is going to take care of itself.
Right. And if you
When you
start
set,
targeting and having conversations with your marketing team, they'll be able to tweak or to do more of what's working to give you the right stuff.
absolutely. What I do to set good meetings, Dave, and I think you do something similar, is if I'm having a meeting with somebody, I'm going to say, okay, here's what I want to do today, here's what I want to accomplish today and what I want to learn. And then I ask them, what do you want to get out of this meeting? And then because that's my first opportunity to get them to start talking and listen, and I can listen. And then the expectations are clear because now we have a good understanding, a common understanding of what we're going to want to go through. But you don't always get that, so you start with what we call the connect call, and that's the thing. That's really that first time that you're going to be talking to somebody. Sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's a referral. This is really what do I mean by that? This is your first live conversation with a prospect. So the goal here is introduce yourself, break down resistance, get into a conversation, and then figure out if this is a good fit and schedule a first appointment to really start talking about what the problem is and how you can solve it. You notice none of this is about me. None of this is about what I want to do and sell. This is all about the prospect and what they want. And so oftentimes, if we're going to start doing that, if we are doing so, we're starting it on the phone. But sometimes, who are we talking to? Great, because I do this on the phone a lot because if I'm having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, I can end it by saying, let's have that meeting where we're going to talk about the problem and how we can potentially solve it, and say, I'll spin up a Zoom. Are there anybody else that should be included in that meeting?
Right.
It's not because the person I'm talking to isn't necessarily the decision maker. It's a lot of people right now are working on teams, and it also helps with my competitive intel. Because if I know 2 or 3 more people who are going to get invited to that meeting, now all of a sudden I can see really what the field looks like. So there's a ton that goes into this. I teach a 6-week boot camp for HubSpot on how to do this. But and usually this is sort of the tip of the iceberg, and this is the first thing that you do is say very simply, "Hey Debbie, this is Trygve from BizzyWeb," and that's it. You pause. Everybody you talk to cannot do this well. They have to follow up with a question. "Hey Dave, this is Trygve from BizzyWeb. How are you today?"
Yep.
And you're like, "What? Who are you again?" Or,
Yeah.
"Hey Dave, this is Trygve from BizzyWeb. Is now a good time?"
Mhm.
No, they'll be like, what? No, it's not. No, it's not a good time. Who are you again?" And if that happens, let's say, "Okay, great." Say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Doesn't sound like you were expecting my call. I wanted," and I summarize this, but my actual talk track is a little bit longer. I say, "Hey, I wanted to reach out because, either X, somebody referred me, or, John referred me, or I was doing some research on your industry. I found your company, and I didn't know anything about you. So I did a little bit research, and I found a couple of things that I thought might be helpful that I wanted to share with you. And it'd be okay if I spend a little time talking about that today."
Sure, Trygve.
Because now it's
Let's do
about
that.
you. Now it's about you, and I have something that I want to share. I'm not telling you that you should buy my stuff or
Right.
you should sign a big long contract with Busy. I'm just saying, hey, I found something. Would you be interested in learning what it is about you? And more often than not, people say yes. Does this always work? No, it's kind of the old Anchorman thing that 60% of the time it works every time. But what you're trying to do is make it about them and put it in the mindset of them. And so once you get somebody talking, then your job is not to interrupt them, not to share. It's to actively listen. So here's some great active listening lines that you can use to kind of spur the conversation about. My favorite is, "Tell me a little bit more about that." And they'll keep going or repeat back what they said. So what I hear you say is this, or let me get this right, or just simply, "Wow, that's interesting." If you're talking to high D, high I people on the disc profile that you really that are, typically sales or VPs of sales, you can say, "What else? What else?" And they'll unpack. My favorite one is, um, "Wow, how did you come to that conclusion? How did you figure that out?" Because that's making it's giving them kudos for coming to the conclusion that, hey, they have a problem that you can potentially solve. But all that being said, we're still in the mindset that those people don't want to talk to us, Dave, and they're still not ready to go forward. They still think of us as that, "Wait a minute, you're going to take something from me that I don't want taken. So how can I do that, and how can I do this better?" So there's a whole mess of reasons why people object when you call, and all of them are generally pretty inauthentic. and they're out of the blue. But it all sort of boils down to a couple of things. Number one is they're busy. They have a bad day. They couldn't be bothered. They don't know who you are. Their lizard brain is firing and they don't know who you are. So they're in defense mode. So if you're going to answer those objections quickly, realize they're not real objections. They're not really mad at you. There's something else is going on, and that's okay. They're just things that people say. So your job at this point, don't get flustered, leverage your pause, smile, be conciliatory, and have some good answers to some basic questions. Those are not the same things as scripted responses, just having a good understanding of what you're wanting to talk to. And then ask a soft question back is, hey, sounds like you're not, this isn't a good time. Is there a better time that I can connect with you that would be more workable for you, that I can share some of the things that I want to do with you? And then at the end of the day, if it's still not going well, that's okay. You can bail out, or you can use one of your, your active listing lines to say, wow, tell me about it. Somebody says, wow, I'm having a terrible day. Oh, really? Tell me. Because sometimes, every once in a while, sometimes people just want to feel validated and they want to hear more about, they need to unload. So if you can do that, man, you're going to build trust really quickly. And that has nothing to do with you. They're not mad at you. Their day isn't bad because of you. It's just bad. So listen, listen. But then we come to my favorite thing, which is the gatekeeper, which everybody's afraid of the gatekeeper. And that's that person who is usually the entry level, or the person who's answering the phone, whose job it is not to put calls through. So it's very exhausting. It's very demanding. There's very little respect. But these people are the key to your success. So first and foremost, the most important thing is, when you're dealing with gatekeepers, is you have to treat them like human beings. It's a tough job. They're trying really hard. So don't be rude or condescending. So every time I talk to a gatekeeper, I always try to remember their name, or ask them their name. Excuse me, what's your name? Victoria? Oh, hi, Victoria. It's very nice to meet you. Thanks for picking up the phone. So thanks for helping me out. Then I say, well, I'm looking for Danielle. Not Danielle Johnson, just Danielle. So why do I only use their first name?
Because that gives you the option, in case there's more than one Daniel, to
Yeah.
have them direct to the right person.
Yep. And I want Victoria to think that I'm buds with Danielle, that we're on a first name basis, and that'll help us get transferred a little quicker. If you don't know the name of the person you're supposed to talk to, you need to go back and do research. So Victoria always asks that same question. Well, does she knows why you're calling? And if they've interacted with some of our marketing, I can say, sure, yes, she does. Or if they haven't, then, I can pull this off better than a lot of people. I can be a little cheeky and say, you know what? Yeah, maybe. And which is a little unique, and it's a little bit of a monkey wrench, and people will be like, I don't know what that means. And more often than not, I get put to voicemail, but every once in a while I get put through. So, but sometimes if Victoria's really tough, she's going to put a little bit more detail into it. She's going to say, well, wait a minute. What's this about? And then I can reference the reason I'm calling and say, I found out some information that I wanted to make sure got in front of her. Or then, okay, so now I'm kind of past Danielle, but she's not necessarily going to connect me to the person I want to talk to. So she's going to say, she's going to ping the person I want to talk to. Hey, do you know this person, Trygve from BizzyWeb? That's not how you pronounce my name. It's not pronounced Trygve. And about 10% of the time, Danielle will say, well, sure, put it through. But not 90% of the time, Victoria is going to come back and say, oh, she's busy. Would you like to leave a message? And then here's the differentiator. You always say, well, can I leave it with you? And then, because you're trying to make friends with that gatekeeper. Well, well, no, she just has voice. Okay, great. Well, hey, 50% of the time she says yes, 50% of the time that gatekeeper says no. But then the next time I can call is I can say, hey, Victoria, it's Trygve. Do you know if Danielle got my message? Because now I'm talking to my buddy. I'm not talking, and I'm still trying to get through. So my selling has gone from this big spectrum down to this thing. And all I'm trying to do is earn trust from that person. And I'm honest with her. I say, I'm going to be calling X amount of times because I really think that this is important, something that'd be helpful. So I'm laying out and leveraging those expectations as well. So at the end of the day, then if I what I try and do is I try and call somebody 4 times within 12 business days, so about 2.5 weeks. More than that, I've found that people think I'm creepy. Less than that, people think that they're really not going to take you seriously. And by the fourth time, if nobody responds, then I move on.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a huge overview of a lot of really tough things, and we had a bunch of questions come in today, Tricky. So
Absolutely.
I want to break us out for that. This is your entreaty for all of our attendees today to go ahead and submit those questions in the Q&A tool or in chat if you want. But we did catalog everybody's questions that sent in a question beforehand. So while folks enter their questions in the Q&A, let's go through a few of the questions that were submitted in advance. So first one I want to hit you with, Trygve, is how much should I reach out to someone? I think you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, what I try and do is I try and do a 4 and 12 reach out, and that's 4 voicemails. Sometimes I do video emails as well, which is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Mhm.
So shout out if you've gotten a video from me. But 4 voicemails, 4 emails, and then my last email says, "Hey, sounds like it sounds like this isn't a good time for us to connect. I've got some information that I think would be helpful. Would love to chat when you get. You obviously know how to get a hold of me."
Mhm.
Because what I'm trying to do is not be desperate. I'm trying to be helpful and persistent, but not club people over the head, because that's just annoying, and it's annoying for me too. Because one of the jokes about my job at BizzyWeb is that I actually have 2 part-time jobs. Is one of my jobs is the head of sales, and my other part-time job is of leaving voicemails. So
Right.
it's part of the game, but a 4 and 12 is what I'd recommend. More than that, or and space it out over a couple of days. I use one of the HubSpot tools, which is a HubSpot sequence that helps cue me into what I need to do and when. And there's a whole prospecting dashboard now in HubSpot that really is fantastic for that. So
Yeah.
I listed it out here. My first attempt is usually that first reach out, that call and email. Then what I do is I wait a couple of days, and I do that. I call them again a couple of days later. And then third attempt is about 3 days after that. And then my last attempt is about 12 days. And it's that should I stay or should I go thing. So I don't really push the pace too much. Just what I'm trying to show is a certain amount of professionalism and persistence, but also that my time is valuable, and also that I don't. If it is not good for you, it's not good for me.
Mhm. Right on. Okay. So sometimes it can be hard to stay motivated month in, month out when you've been doing sales for a number of years. You
Yes.
stay charged.
I have a pathological inability to quit things, so that's why I'm uniquely chained to my job. But make it fun. If the things you're doing aren't working, try something else just for the sake of trying something else. If you've run into the same problem over and over and over again, go back to those people and say, "Hey, why really didn't you buy from me?" And what they'll tell you is, "Well, this other person did this or they did this," but at least you be able to continue the conversation. The other thing that we do at BizzyWeb is we get all the sales guys together every Thursday afternoon for 2.5 hours. We all make calls together and we all listen to each other's calls in order to work on getting better. You get that real time feedback. Sometimes we play a game called Secret Word, which I love and not everybody else does.
It's fun. Yeah, I love it
Yeah,
too.
yeah. So what I'll do is say, well, okay, so Dave, on your next call, even if you leave a voicemail, use the word rutabaga somewhere in the call. And then that'll get people's lizard brain firing a little bit more, like, oh man, I gotta listen, I gotta talk, I gotta actively listen, and then I gotta figure out how to use rutabaga. So it's changed. But if you've been in business for a long time, don't change for the sake of change. Change one thing, roll it out for a while, or realize, hey, I'm really good at this, and I'm just having a bad streak. I'm gonna keep doing what I do, and the world's gonna cycle back to me.
Right on. Okay, so this is a lot. How do you track what you're doing?
I have changed my tune on this a lot because I came from being a salesperson and got forced into management where I didn't want to track my productivity because it was awful, and how dare you. And I had this great experience with you, Dave, where where because I started tracking my productivity because I had to, you made an offhand comment to me in the office once about how somebody called and complained about me, and then you walked away from me. I was like, wait, what? And I walked into your, wait, what do you mean? And you're like, oh yeah, it was fine. And then somebody called and complained about it. Wait, what? What? And you annoyingly then they complained about you that you didn't give somebody the time of day. And so I looked in the CRM and I saw that you spent 45 minutes with them and have sent them 3 emails. So I told them to pound sand. So tracking your
Nicely.
product,
Yeah.
yeah, tracking your productivity is really important because KPIs are not just measurements to get salespeople fired. They're actually measurements to figure out how to be successful. So we have a new guy who's been here for about 2 months, and he's not calling as much as I do because he's ramping up and he's learning how to get better at it. Because I know that once you hit a certain amount, you have to call a certain amount, you have to have a certain amount of meetings, but you also have time to actually do the work. Because otherwise, if you're writing proposals, you have to do those things. So use the CRM. We use HubSpot. I'm a big fan of it. It's one of our core competencies here. If you haven't had that, it's worth spending a half an hour with me or Dave and just getting a nickel tour with no muss or no fuss.
Right on. Okay, this is one that I think we're going to need the submitter to give us more info on, but because it's very curious. But how do
No,
I motivate farmers to use
yeah,
salesmanship?
this is somebody who runs a farmer's market in Kentucky.
Oh, right on. Okay, cool.
And so that's why I put the farmers market there as is a note to me. So what I'd suggest a couple of things is, in the one hand, what you get at a farmer's market is basically a commodity. You can get a cucumber at a store, you can get it just about anywhere. But what are you getting that's special when you go to a farmer's market? You're buying it directly from the guy who pulled it out of the ground. So it's special, it's unique, it's generally more flavorful, it's better for you than it's probably not GMO. So, and at the end of the day, anything that the farmers don't sell, they got to take home. So the question is, how much after you've unpacked everything, how do you want to how much do you want to take home? So we're working on, not necessarily working on price, but I would say encourage them to talk about the value of what they get from you versus anybody else, how things are raised. Everybody really likes what we sort of jokingly refer to as artisanal content. They like knowing how things are made and they like seeing the craft of it. And you can find that at a farmer's market. And generally, the things you buy at a farmer's market, it's probably a little bit more expensive, but it's demonstrably better than you get anywhere else.
Right on. Okay. Well, Henrietta has a really great entreaty, and she might want to just ask. And so, if you want to raise your hand, Henrietta, I'll be able to turn on your mic. But she says my elevator speech sucks. So I'd be
Which
curious to see or
I
to
know,
hear a little bit about it. But
Henriette is a great example of somebody, and we've really not done a lot with her over the years but she's fantastic. She's a great friend. She's a great advocate for BizzyWeb. We've spoken for her organizations over the years, but we don't make a lot of money off her, and we're okay with that because she's wonderful. But here's the thing that's great about her is Henriette, and I'll explain for everybody in the audience. What Henriette does is she takes over a hockey arena twice a year, and she does a consignment sale for everybody who has kids. And so, if you need, and this is something that when my son was born, I didn't know about this, is you need a monster amount of clothes. And you want nice clothes, you want nice things, but you don't want to go spend $60 on a sweatshirt where your kid's going to barf on it in 20 minutes.
and Henrietta
So,
is on her mic is now on if she wants to ask. She raised her hand. So Henrietta, if you want,
Henriette, let's hear it.
if it unmutes, and if it's not, that's okay.
Okay, my elevator speech, that sucks. That's what you
Yes,
want to know?
sure.
Okay. Well, I have a couple, but the one I like best, and you can tell me if that's a good one, is I help busy moms shop and sell all things kids.
That's
Yeah,
pretty great.
that's
I,
great. I don't know what the
yeah,
problem is.
it gets right into it. I think maybe, well, and I should defer to the pro, but what you've done there is you've shared just enough to tease their curiosity without talking too much about you, and you get right to the heart of the issue. So we're always a little tougher on ourselves than anybody else, but I kind of dig that. The one thing that I might keep exploring is get to that moment. So if you have a little tidbit or something that even says, most people cycle through 18 pounds of clothes each year that they wind up returning with the kid wearing it once and then going in. So giving them some sort of a aha moment or a holy cow moment, and then going into that little pitch can be even more helpful. If you've been to a BNI or any of those groups, they train you really well on how to elicit a interest response. And that might be another thing to consider adding to your pitch.
I think it's great, Henriette. I know what you do, and you are a monster impactful person in the lives of the people that you have for customers. And so keep asking for referrals, because they're always going to be new babies. There are always going to be new kids, and everybody wants to have nice things. Similarly, once my kid grows out of something, my kid's 9 years old and 5'3". I'm buying new clothes for him every 20 minutes. What do I do with them? I bring them to Henriette, and I get a little bit of money out of it. It's a fantastic business. It's called From Yours to Mine, and it's available online, but it's based here in Minnesota. It's fantastic. If you're in Minnesota and you've got kids, you should definitely check them out.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for participating with us, Henriette. All right, next question. We're constantly underbid by competitors. What do we do?
Boy, that's a $64,000 question. I suppose not literally. I said that to somebody the other day who was under 30, and it was like, she was really mad. Like, what do you mean it costs $64,000? And like, man, I got to get new analogies. What I'd encourage you to do is go on Amazon. There's a great a book. It's about 80 pages long, called The Cinnamon Story. So if you're losing on price all the time, you got to figure out a different way to position it. So yeah, you might cost a little bit more, but do you deliver faster than other people? Is your service better on the back end? Like, I knew a guy once who what he did was he created QR code. He sold commercial lighting, so he put QR codes on the boxes of everything that were on there and on people's invoices, because it's one of those things that had such a long string of what their model number is. Nobody remembered that, so they just took the first available, or they went to Home Depot instead of buying from him. But he made it easier by saying, "Hey, just scan here and let me know, and I'll come out and give you more." So figure out what is your service offering beyond just the one thing, and if it's a commodity, deliver it better, deliver it faster, deliver it with more care.
All right, next one. How do you sell to a super niche market, Trygve?
The sales cliche here is that the riches are in the niches. So if you're in a super niche market, then don't sell to everybody. Let everybody know that you only sell to these people and that you specialize in this, because we are a generalist firm at BizzyWeb. We do work in a lot of different industries. And I think one of the most common ways in which we lose business is people say, well, we work with somebody who specializes in X, and that's great. It's not who we are. It's not baked into our DNA. But double and triple down on your niche. Make sure your marketing is there. Make sure your website's there. Make sure everything that you're talking about is saying that you only focus on that one super niche.
I think explicitly in this, if you're not getting enough sales in your niche market, you need to do more research and find more of those people in that niche, and then come up with something to engage those people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, right on. So I think this might be our last question. How do I go about educating business owners on the importance of working with us when looking to exit their business? I know who submitted this one.
Yeah, so this was a business broker who sent it. So this is a really complicated question, because if anybody is looking to sell their business or wanting to get out of their business, they have an emotional attachment to how much they think their business is worth. And oftentimes the market doesn't actually bear that out. So what what I would say in answer to this is a really great use case for really good marketing and a really good inbound marketing, because if somebody is really looking to get out of their business, they're not looking to do it now, they're looking to do it in 2 to 3 to 4 years. And so what they really need to know, what they're really asking isn't how do I get out of my business now? It's how do I hit my number? How do I get the number I want? So this is much like real estate, where your house is never in the best shape that your house is going to be is 2 days. Number one is the day you move in, and the second is the day you put it on the market. So your job as a business broker is to help people stage their business. What is their leads? What is their customer base? What are the assets that they have? And that's tripling down on process and making sure that those things are marketable and valuable, so that when the business and which then turns around and shows what the value is, which will show on a P&L as well. So then that cycles into getting people to what they really want, which is the number to sell their business.
I love that. Well, okay, so we're right at time. We actually have like 30 seconds left. So I want to tip in. We can stay online for a few more minutes if you have specific questions for attendees. But for those attendees, you've registered, you're here, you're going to be getting an email with an ebook about everything you ever wanted to know about HubSpot to track your CRM and everything that you do. So make sure to sign into that. And then please also be sure to go to BizzyWeb.com/events to register for next month's event. If you've attended a HubSpot user group in the Twin Cities or with manufacturing, I led a talk on HubSpot AI to spend less time on content a few weeks ago. And there's more than double the amount of content in this talk because I want to go deeper for our audience. So we're going to talk about what you need to know to use AI to save time and build more effective content. So would love to have you there. I'm going to stop the live stream in case folks do have additional questions or want to chat. So for the folks that are watching on live stream, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time at BizzyWeb.com/events. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.